rest van de computers willen niet internet gebruiken. Dus het is ineens van 2 uur naar 5 uur gegaan voor mij. Volgens mij is de bitrate misschien toch net te hoog. Oh yeah, it works now. Sorry. Hi everyone! Welcome to the stream! Let's see, who is present today? Infinite Psychosis, hi! Nice to see you today! And Lady K, hello everyone! Hi to you as well! It's fun to see you all here today. Yeah, a little bit of an odd cosplay that I am wearing today. But I decided on a whim that I want to restyle one of my wigs. That was absolutely... I don't know what my younger cosplayer self was thinking, but I turned it into something new and it looks kind of good. Also, this is a loose clip that I... that is just installed in the wig. So a extra ahoge. Isn't that cool? For the people who haven't seen it on Twitter, this is a more or less a closet cosplay from Hypodontia, which is a song from the Vocaloid producer Ghost. One of my favorite producers. Makes really awesome songs. Novocaine is also really good, which is the other song in the same series. Both are about the dentist and more or less the phobia from it. I have somewhere in my room a fake tooth that I made for all the videos and photos. Made out of a thermoplastic. It's really fun. Anyways, I'll be narrating another story from Poe today. You guys really enjoyed it last time, and I was surprised that there were people in the chat who were giving requests on what story to do next. And since someone asked for the Pit and the Pendulum, that is exactly what we're going to do. So if anyone has more cool stories that they want to hear from Poe or Lovecraft, feel free to just throw them in there. I hope I didn't... No, my mic's still standing. I'm excited. I haven't done this in a couple of weeks. I was going to be narrating a story sooner, but a couple of things came up. But I'm happy that I can sit here again. So, yeah! With a book in hand. How's everybody else doing, by the way? Then I can react to those messages somewhere halfway through the story when I take a small break, so I like to see how everyone's doing in the meantime. And I'll keep knocking my mic. That's not a good idea. He's standing right there, so this little... Oof. Not very smart though, but let's see. The Pit and the Pendulum. Great if you have those little things in your book. Can't lose them. The Pit and the Pendulum. I was sick, sick unto death with that long agony, and when they at length unbound me, and I was permitted to sit, I felt at my senses were leaving me. The sentence, the dread sentence of death, was a loss of my distinct accentuation, which reached my ears. After that, the sound of inquisitorial voices seemed merged into one dreamy, intermediate hum. It conveyed to my soul the idea of revolution, perhaps from the occasion in fancy, with the burr of mill-wheel. This only for a brief period, for presently I heard no more. Yet, for a while, I saw, but with how terrible of an accuracy! I saw the lips of the black-robed judges. They appeared to me white, whiter than a sheet upon which I trace these words, and thin even to the gross thickness, thin within the intensity of the expressions of firmness, of immovable resolution, of stern contempt of human torture. I saw that the degrees of what to me was fate were still issuing from the lips. I saw them write with a deadly locution. I saw them fashion of syllables of my name, and I shudder because no sound succeeded. I saw, too, for a few moments of delirious horror, the soft and nearing imperceptible these I'm just skipping that word, if you guys don't mind. I'm doing my best. Waving of the sable draperies, which enwaved the walls of the apartment. And then my vision fell upon the 7 tall candles upon the table. At first they wore the aspect of charity, and seemed white and slender angels who would save me. But then, all at once, there came the most deadly nausea over my spirit, and I felt every fibre in my frame thrill, as I had touched the wire of cravenly battering. With my angel forms came meaningless spectres, with heads of flame, and I saw that from there would be no help. and then there stole into my fancy, like a rich musical note, the thought of what sweet rest there must be in the grave. The thought came gently and stealthily, and it seemed long before I entertained full appreciation, but just as my spirit came at length, properly, to feel the entertain of it, the figures of the judges vanished, as if magically. From before me the tall candles sank into nothingness, the flames went out utterly, the blackness of darkness subverted all sensations. Pits swallowed up in mad rushing descent, as a soul into Hades. Then silence and stillness, and night were the universe. I'd swooned, but still will not say that all of consciousness was lost. What of lost? Oh, what of it remained, I will not attempt to define, or even will describe. Yet, all of not lost, in the deepest slumber, no, in delirium, no, in a swoon, no, in death, no, even in the grave all is not lost. Even there is no immortality for man. Arousing from the most profound of slumbers, we break the gossamer's web for some dream. Yet in a second afterwards, so frail may the web have been, we remember not that we have dreamed. In return to life from the swoon, there are two stages. First, that of the sense of mental and spiritually. Secondly, that of the sense of physical excellence. It seems probable that if, upon reaching the second stage, we could recall the impression of the first, we should find the impression eloquent, and the memories of the gulf beyond. And that gulf is what? How at last shall distinguish it from the shadows, and those of the tomb? But if the impression of what I termed at the first stage are not, at will, recalled, yet, after long interval, do they not come unbidden, while we marvel when they come? He who had not swooned is not he who finds strange places and wildly familiar faces in calls that glow. It is not he who beholds floating in mid-air the sad visions of many more, not few. Is not he who ponders over fortune of some novel flower. Is not he whose brain grows bewildered with the meaning of the musical cadence which has never before arrested his attention. Amid frequent and thoughtful endeavors to remember, amid earnest struggles to regather some token of the state of seeming nothingness into which my soul had lapsed. And there had been moments where I dreamed of success. There have been brief, very brief periods where I have conjured up remembrance, which lucid reason of later epoch assures me could have had reference only to that condition of seeming unconsciousness. These shadows of memory tell, indistinctly, of a tall figure that lifted and bore me in silence down, down, still down, till a hideous dizziness oppressed me, at a mere idea of the interminableness of the descent. They tell also vague horror at my heart, on account of the heart's unnatural stillness. They come a sense of sudden motionlessness throughout all things, as if those who bore me a ghastly train had outrun, in their descent, the limits of the limitless, and passed from the wearisome of their toil. After this, I called to mind flatness and dampness, and then all is madness. The madness of a memory which buys itself among forbidden things. Very suddenly, there came back to my soul motion and sound, the tumultuous motion of my heart, and, in my ears, the sound of its beating. Then a pause which all is blank. Then again sound, and motion, and touch, a tingling sensation pervading my frame, and then a mere consciousness of existing, without thought, a condition which lasted long. Then they suddenly thought, a shrouding terror, an earnest endeavor to comprehend my true state, then a strong desire to lapse into instability, then a rushing revival of a soul, and a successful effort to move. And now a full memory of a trial, of the judges, of a sable drapeness, of sentence, of the sickness, of the swoon, the entire forgetfulness of all that followed, of all that a later day and much earnest endeavor have enabled my vaguely to recall. So far, I had not opened my eyes. I felt that I lay upon my back, unbound. I reached out my hand, and I fell heavily upon something damp and hard. There I suffered it to remain for many minutes, while I strove to imagine where and what I could be. I longed, yet I dared not employ my vision. I dreaded the first glance of objects around me. It was not that I feared to look upon things horrible, but that I grew aghast, lest there should be nothing to see. At length, where the word desperation at heart, I quickly unclosed my eyes. My worst thoughts then were confirmed. The blackness of internal night encompassed me. I struggled for breath. The intensity of darkness seemed to oppress and stifle me. The atmosphere was intolerably close. I still lay quietly, and made effort to exercise my reason. I brought to mind the inquisitorial proceedings. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Proceed from that word. Oh my lord. An attempt from the point to deduce my real condition. The sentence had passed, and it appeared to me that a very long interval of time has since elapsed. Yet not for a moment did I suppose myself actually dead. Such a superstition, notwithstanding what we read in fiction, is altogether inconsistent with real existence. But where and in what state was I? The condemnment to death, I knew, perished usually to the auto da fé, and one of these had been held on the very night of the day of my trial. Had I been remanded to my dungeon to await my next sacrifice, which would not take place for many months? This, it would once saw, could not be. Victims had been in immediate demand. Moreover, my dungeon, as well as all the condemned cells at Toledo, had stone floors, and light was not altogether excluded. A fearful idea now suddenly drove the blood in torrents upon my heart, and for a brief period I once more were lost into insensibility. Upon recovering, I at once stared to my feet, trembling convulsively in every fibre. I thrust my arms wildly above and around me in all directions. I felt nothing, yet dreaded to move a step, lest I should be impeded by the walls of the tomb. Perspiration burst from every pore, and stood in a cold big bear upon my forehead. The agony of suspense grew at length intolerable, and I cautiously moved forward, with my arms extended, and my eyes straining from the sockets, in the hope of catching some faint ray of light. I proceeded for many paces. Pardon? But still, all was blackness and vacancy. I breathed more freely. It seemed evident that mine was not, at least, the most hideous of fates. You're doing a great job. Thanks, Lady K. I'm doing my best. Lady Spokaria. Can't stay, Pumpkin. I need to go to bed. Have a great stream. Thanks, Spooks, for tuning in a bit. Have a good night's sleep, okay? See you next time. I try to stream a little bit earlier then, so you can catch me. Or later. I am not sure what your time zones are. It's like yes. Oh, is this now a new option? Can I can throw emojis in the chat from Streamlabs. I have Streamlabs in front of my face, so that I now see. Is it a reaction or? Oh, no. YouTube chat, open a web browser. Never mind. It doesn't work. Log in om te chatten. Yeah, I figured that. I'm still here. Happy to have you. Then we're just going to continue narrating the story. I have no idea how long this one is. You know, for a very well-known story, I should know, but quite frankly, I don't. Oh, I live in the States. Ah, okay. Yeah, I stream at strange times since I'm from the Netherlands. So I tried my best today to stream a little earlier, so it's currently 3:30 in the afternoon. Usually I stream in the evenings. So made me wonder if I would be able to catch more people that way. But we'll see. At least I'm happy you two are here. Hope you're having fun. I am. Okay, where was I? And now, as I still continue to step cowardly onward, they came through onging? Paul, what kind of words do you use? There came through onging. Yes. Upon my recollection, 1,000 vague rumours of the horrors of Toledo, of the dungeon that had been strange, things narrated, fables I had always deemed them, but very strange, and too ghastly to repeat, save in a whisper. Was I left to perish of starvation in a subterranean world of darkness, or what fate, perhaps, even more fearful awaited me? That the result would be death, and death of more considerable bitterness. I knew too well the character of my judges to doubt the mode of the hour, were all occupied to distract me. My outstretched hands at length encountered some solid obstruction. It was a wall, seemingly of stone masonry, smooth, slimy, and cold. I followed it up, stepping with the careful distrust of which certain antique narratives had inspired me. This progress, however, offered me no means of uncertaining the dimensions of my dungeon. As I might make this circuit and return to the point whence I set out, without being aware of the fact, so perfectly uniform seemed the wall. I therefore sought the knife, which had been in my pocket, then led into the inquisition chamber, but it was gone. My clothes had been exchanged for wrappers of coarse serge. I thought of forging the blade in some minute curve of the menagerie, so as to identify my point of departure. The difficulty, nevertheless, but with trivial, although, in disorder of my fancy, it seemed at first insuperable. I tore a part of the hem of the rope and placed a fragment at full length at the right angles of the wall, and groping my way around the prison, I could not fail to encounter this wreck upon completing my circuit. So at least I thought, but I had not counted upon the extent of the dungeon, or upon my own weakness. The ground was moist and slippery. I staggered upon for some time, when I stumbled and fell. My extensive fatigue induced me to remain prostrate, and sleep soon overtook me as I lay. Upon awaking, I stretched forth an arm. I found myself a loaf and pitcher with water. I was too much exhausted to reflect upon the circumstance, but ate and drank with avidity. Shortly after, I resumed my tour around the prison, and with much toil came the last fragment of serge, up to the period when I fell. I had counted 52 paces, and upon resuming my walk, I had counted 48 more. When I arrived at the rack, there were in all then 100 paces, and admitting 2 paces to the yard, I presumed the dungeon to be 50 yards in circuit. I had met, however, with many angles of the wall, and thus I could form no guess at the shape of the vault. For the vault I could not help supposing it to be. I had little object, certainly no hope, in these reaches, and a vague curiosity prompted me to continue them. Quitting the wall, I resolved to cross the area of the enclosure. At first I proceeded with extreme caution, for the floor, although seemingly of solid material, was treacherous with slime. At length, however, I took courage, and did not hesitate to step firmly, endeavouring to cross in a direct line as possible. I had advanced some 10 or 12 paces in this manner, when the remand of the rope became entangled between my legs. I stepped on it, and fell violently on my face. In the conclusion attending my fall, I did not immediately apprehend in somewhat startling circumstance. with yet, and a few seconds afterward, and while I still lay prostrate, arrested my attention. It was this. My chin rested upon the floor of the prison, but my lips and the upper portion of my head, although seemingly at a less elevation of the chin, touched nothing. At the same time, my forehead seemed bathed in a clammy vapor. A particular smell of decaying fungus arose in my nostrils. I put forward an arm. I shuddered to see that I had fallen at the very brink of the circular pit, whose extent, of course, I had no means of ascertaining at the moment, groping about in the masonry just below the margin. I succeeded in dislodging a small fragment and let it fall into the abyss. For many seconds I harked to its reverberation, and it dashed against the sides of the chasm to the descent. At length, where the sullen purge of water, succeeded by loud echoes. At the same moment, there came a sound rumbling as quick opening, and a rapid closing of the door overhead, while a faint gleam of light flashed suddenly through the gloom, and seemingly faded away. I saw clearly the doom which had been prepared for me, and congratulated myself upon the timely accident by which I escaped. Another step before my fall, and the world had seen no more, and the death just avoided was of that very character which I had regarded as fabulous and frivolous in the tales respecting the Inquisition. To the victims of eternity, there was a choice of death, and the direst physical agonies, or death which is hideous moral horrors, had been reserved for the latter. By a long suffering my nerves had been unstrung, until I trembled at the sound of my own voice, and had become in every respect a fitting subject for the species of torture which awaited me. Shaking in every limb, I groped back the way to the wall, resolving there to perish rather than risk the terrors in the wells, of which my imagination would picture many of the various positions of the dungeon. In other conditions of mind, I might have had courage to end my mystery at once by a plunge into one of these abysses. But now I was the veriest of cowards. Neither could I forget what I had read of these pits, that the sudden exposition of life formed no part of their most horrible plan. Aggravation of spirit left me, wake for many hours, but at length I gained slumber, upon arousing from my sight, before a loaf of pitcher of water. A burning thirst consumed me, and I emptied the vessel as I drank. I must have been drugged, for scarcely had I drunk, before I became unrestably drowsy. A deep sleep fell upon me, a sleep like that of death. How long it lasted, of course I do not know, but when once again I unclosed my eyes, the objects around me were visible, by a wild sulphurous lustre, the origin of which I could not at first determine. I was enabled to see extend the aspect of the prison. In the size of been greatly mistaken, the whole circuit of the walls did not exceed 25 yards, for some minutes, in fact, occasioned me a world of vain trouble. Vain, indeed. For what could have been less importance under the terrible circumstances which envied me, and the mere dimensions of my dungeon? But my soul took a wild interest in rifles, and I busied myself in endeavours to encounter of error I had committed in my measurement. The truth at length flashed upon me. In my first attempt of exploration I had encountered 52 paces. Up to the period from when I fell, I must have been within the pace of 2 of the fragment of search, in fact. I nearly performed a circuit of the vault. I then slept, and upon wakening I must have returned upon my steps, thus supposingly circuited nearly double which I actually was. My confusion of mind prevented me from observing that I began to tour with the wall to the left, and ended it with the wall to the right. I had been deceived too, in respect to the shape of the enclosure. In my feeling, my way, I had found many angles, and thus the suit, in idea of great irregularity, so abhorrent that its effect of total darkness upon one arousing from lethargy or sleep. The angles were simply those of few slight depressions or niches. At hourly intervals the general shape of the prison was square. What I had taken for masonry seemed to be iron or some other metal, and huge plates, whose sutures and joints occasionally the depression. The entire surface of the metallic closure was riddenly daubed in hideous and repulsive devices to which the carnal superstition of the monks had given rise. The figures of friends and aspects of menace, of skeleton forms and other more really fearful images, overspread and disfigured the walls. I observed that the outlines of the monstrosities were sufficiently distinct, but the colours seemed faded and blurred, as with the effects of the dawn and the damped atmosphere. I now noticed the floor, too, which was of stone. In the centre yawned a circular pit. From those jars I escaped, but it was the only one in the dungeon. All this I saw indistinctly, and by much effort, for my personal condition had been greatly changed during slumber. I now lay upon my back, and at full length, on a species of low framework of wood. To this I was securely bound by a long strap, resembling my circlet. It passed in many conveyors about my limbs and body, leaving at liberty only my head, and my arm left to extend, that I could by a dint of much exertion, supply myself with food from earthen dish which lay by my side on the floor. I saw, to my horror, that the pitcher had been removed. I saw, to my horror, for what I consumed with intolerable thirst. This thirst, it appeared to be a design of the pescuous stimulant, for the food in the dish was meat puccanately seasoned, Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Looking upward, I surveyed the ceiling of my prison. It was some 30 or 40 feet overhead, and I constructed much as the side was. In one of its panels, a very singular figure riveted the whole attention. It was a painted figure of Time, as he is commonly represented, save that, in lieu of the sea, he held what, at a casual glance, I suppose to be a picture image of the huge pendulum, such as we see in antique clocks. There was something, however, in appearance of the machine which caused me to regard it more attentively. While I gazed uponward at it, for position was immediately over my own. I fancied that I saw it in motion. In an instant upon fancy was confirmed, its sweep was brief, and of course slow. I watched it for some minutes, somewhat in fear, but more in wonder, wearied at what length which observing its dull movement. I turned my eyes upon the other wall in the cell. A slight noise attracted my notice, and, looking to the floor, I saw several numerous rats traversing it. They had issued from the well, which lay just within view to my right. I should not touch my face. It's black. I have not sealed the body paint. I was lazy today. Oh, you guys should see my shirt. It's filled with red drips. It's terrible, and it wasn't even on purpose. Oof. Oh Lord, where was I? Rats. Something with rats. Shit. Yep, yeah, I think I got it. Even then, while I gazed, they come up in troops, hurriedly, with ravenous eyes, allured by the scent of the meat. From this I required much effort and attention to scare them away. It might have been half an hour, perhaps even an hour, for I could take but perfect note at time, before I again cast my eyes upward. What I saw confounded and amazed me. The sweep of the pendulum had increased and extended by nearly a yard. As a natural consequence, its velocity was also much greater. But what mainly disturbed me was the idea that had precipitately descended. I observed, with what was horror, it is needless to say, that its nether externally was formed of a crescent and glittering steel, about a foot in length from horn to horn. The horns upward, the under edge eventually, as keen as that of a razor, like razors also. It seemed messy and heavy, tapering from the edge into a solid, board structure above. It was appended to a weighted rod of brass. The whole hissed, and it swung through the air. I could no longer doubt the doom prepared for me by the monkish ingenuity in torture. My cognizance of the pit had become known to inquisitorial agents. The pit whose horror had been descended for bold and recusant as myself. The pit, typical of hell, and regarded the rumour of ultimate tool of their punishments. The plunge into the pit I had avoided by the merest of accidents. I knew that surprise, for entrapment into torment, forms by important portion of all the grostique of the dungeon's depths. Having failed to fall, it was no part of the demon plan to hurl me into the abyss. And thus, there being no alternative, indifference of milder destruction awaited me. Milder! I half smiled in my agony as I thought of such application of such term. What boots to tell for long, long hours of horror, more than mortal, during which I counted the rushing occasions of the steel, inch by inch, line by line, with the descent only appreciable at intervals that seemed ages. Down and still down it came. Days passed. It might have been many days past, ere it swept so close over me that it fanned me with the arid breath. The odor of the sharp steel forced itself into my nostrils. I prayed. I wearied heaven for my prayer for its more speedy descent. I grew frantically mad, and struggled to force myself upward against the sweep of fearful stimuli. And then I fell suddenly calm, and lay smiling at the glittering death, as a child at some rare bauble. There was another interval of utter insensibility. It was brief, for, upon again lapsing into life, and had been no perceptible descent in the pendulum. But it might have been long, for I knew there were demons who took note of my swoon, and who could have been arrested. The vibration at pleasure. Upon my recovery, too, I felt very, inexpressibly sick and weak, as if thought no long inanitions. Even amid the agonies of the period, the human nature craved food. With painful effort I outstretched my left arm, as far as my bonds permitted, and I took possession of a small remnant, which had been spared to me by rats. As I put a portion of mine between my lips, and rushed to my mind a half-formed thought of joy, of hope. Yet what business had I with hope? It was, as I say, a half-formed thought. Man had many such, which I never completed. I felt that it was of joy, of hope, but felt also that it had perished in its formation. In vain I struggled to perfect, to regain it. Long suffering had nearly annihilated all my ordinary powers of mind. I was imbecile, an idiot. The vibration of the pendulum was at right angles to my left. I saw that the crescent had designed to cross the region of my heart. It would fray the surge of my robe. It would return to repeat its operations again and again. Notwithstanding its terribly wild sweep, some 30 feet or more, and the hissing vigour of its descent, sufficient on the sunder of which walls of iron. Still the fraying of my robe would be all that. For several minutes it would accomplish. And at its thought I paused. I dared not to go farther than the reflection. I dwelt upon it, particularly of intention, as if so dwelling I could arrest here in the descent of steel. I forced myself to ponder upon the sound of crescent as it should pass across the garment, upon the peculiar thrilling sensation of the friction of cloth pursued on the nerves. I pondered of all the frequently, yes, until my teeth were on edge. Down, steadily down, it crept. I took a frenzied pleasure on its contrasting its downwards and later velocity. To the right, to the left, far and wide, with the shriek of the downed spirit. To my heart, the steady pace of the trigger, and I alternately laughed and howled, as the one to the other idea grew predominant. Down, certainly, relentlessly down. It vibrated within 3 inches of my bosom. I struggled violently, furiously, to free my left arm. This was free only from my elbow to my hand. I could reach the ladder, from the platter beside me to my mouth, with great effort, but no farther. Could I have broken the fastenings above my elbow? I would have ceased the attempt to arrest the pendulum. I might as well have been attempts to arrest the avalanche. Down, still unpleasing, still unutterably down. I grasped and struggled at each vibration. I shrunk convulsively at its every sweep. My eyes followed its outward and upward whirls with the eagerness of most unminding despair. They closed themselves spasmodically at the descent, although death would have been a relief. Oh, how unspeakable! Still I quivered in every nerve to think how slight the shrinking of machinery would precipitate that keen, glistering axe upon my bosom. It was hope that I prompted the nerve to quiver, the frame of the shrink. It was hope, the hope of triumph on the rack, that whispered to the deaf condemned in every dungeon of the equation. I saw that some 10 or 12 vibrations would bring the steel in actual contact with my robe, and with the observation there suddenly came over my spirit all the keen, collective calmness of despair. For the first time during many hours, or perhaps days, I thought, it now occurred to me that the bandage of circles which enveloped me was unique. I was tied by no separate cord. The first stroke of the razor-like crescent, or halt, any portion of the bond, would so detach it that it might be unwound from my person by means my left hand. But how fearful in that case the promiscuity of the steel, the result of the slightest struggle, how deadly. Was it likely, moreover, that the minions of torture had not foreseen the provider of the possibility? Was it possible that the bandage crossed my bosom, and the track of the pendulum, dreading the find to faint, and, as it seemed, the last hope frustrated, I so far evaded my head as to obtain the distinct view of my breast. The circling enveloped my limbs and body, close in all directions, save the path of destroying crescent. Scarcely I dropped my head back into its original position, when there flashed upon my mind, which I cannot better describe than it infirmed half of my flesh, half of the idea, of deliverance, to which I have previously alluded, and of which I mournfully only floated indeterminately through my brain when I raised food to my burning lips. The whole thought was now present, feeble, sacred thing, scarcely defined, but still entire. I proceeded at once, with a nervous energy of despair, to attempt its execution. Oh, we're almost at the end. Little sippy sip. Right. For many hours the immediate vicinity of the low framework upon which I lay had been literally swarming with rats. They were wild, bold, ravenous, their eyes glaring upon me, as if they were waiting for the motionless on my part to make me their prey. To what food, I thought, have they been accustomed in the well? They had devoured, in spite all of my efforts to prevent them, all but the small remnant of the contents of the dish. I had fallen into an habitual seesaw, or wave of the hand about the platter, and, at length, the consciousness and informity of the movement deprived of the effect, and therefore in their voracity, the vermin frequently fastened their sharp fangs in my fingers, with the particles of the oily and spicy vine, which now remained. I thoroughly rubbed the bandage wherever I could reach it, then reaching my hand from the floor, I lay breathlessly still. At first the ravenous animal was startled and terrified at the charge, and the cessation of the moment. They shrank alarmedly back. Many sought the well, but this was only for a moment. I had not counted in vain upon their voracity, observing that I remained without motion. One or two the boldest leap upon the framework and smelt at the surcingle. This seemed the signal of a general rush. Forth from the well they hurried in fresh troops. They clung to the wood, they overran it, and heaped in hundreds upon my person. The measured movement of the pendulum disturbed them not at all. Avoiding the strokes, they busied themselves with the anointment bandage. They pressed, they swarmed upon me in ever-accumulation heaps. They withered upon my throat. Their coiled lips sought my own. I was half stifled by the soaring pressure. Disgust of which the world had no name swelled my bosom, and chilled with heavy calmness my heart. Yet, 1 minute, I felt that the struggle would be over. Plainly, I proceed to loosening the bandage. I knew that in more than one place it would already served. With a more than human resolution, I lay still, nor I erred my calculations, nor had I endured in vain. I at length felt that I was free, circling, hurling the rebounds from my body, but the stroke of the pendulum already pressed my bosom, and it dried my surge up my robe. It had cut through the linen beneath. Twice again it swung, the sharpness sense of pain shot throughout every nerve. But the moment it escaped, it had arrived. In a wave of my hand, it delivered hurriedly, tumultuously away, with a steady movement, continuous, sidelong shrinking as slow. I slid from the embrace of the bandage, and beyond the reach of the scimitar. For a moment at least, I was free. Free. And in grasp of the Inquisition, I had searched a step on the wooden bed of horror upon the stone floor of the prison, when the motion of the hellish machine ceased and I beheld it drawn up by an invisible force, though the ceiling. This was the lesson which I took desperately to heart. Every motion was undoubtedly watched. Free. I had but escaped death in one form of agony. Agony, yes. To be delivered onto worse than death in some other, with the thought that I unrolled eyes nervously around the barriers of the iron that hemmed me in. Something unusual, some change which at first I could not apprentice distinctly, it was observant, had taken place in the apartment. For many minutes of dreaming and trembling abstraction, I busied myself in vain, unconnected conjecture. During this period I became aware for the first time of the origin of the sulphurous light which illuminated the sun. It proceeded from a fissure, about half of an inch in width, extending entirely around the prison of the base of the walls, which thus appeared, and were completely separated from the floor. I endeavored, but of course in vain, to look through the aperture. I arose from the apparent of the mystery of the aberration of this chamber, broke at once upon my understanding. I've observed that, although the outlines of the figures upon the walls were sufficiently distinct, yet the colours seemed blurred and indefined. The colours were now assumed, and were momentarily assuming, a startling and more intense brilliancy, and gave to spectral and fiendishly portraitures an aspect that might have thrilled even firmer nerves than my own. Demon eyes, with a wild and ghastly vivacity, glared upon me in 1,000 directions, were not have been visible before, and gleamed with lurid lustre of a fire that I could not force my imagination to regard as unreal. Unreal. Even while I breathed, there came to my nostrils a breath of vapor, of heated iron. A suffocating odor pervaded the prison. A deeper glow settled even moments of my eyes, and glanced to my agonies, a richer tint of crimson, the field itself with a picture of horrors of blood. I panted, gasped of breath. There could be no doubt of designing of my torment. Oh, most unrending! Oh, most demonic of men! I shrank from the glowing metal to the scent of the cell, admit to the thought of fury, destruction that impended. The ideal of coolness of the well came over my soul like balm. I rushed to the deathly brink. I threw my straining vision below. The glare of the uncanny roof illuminated the most recess. Yet, for a wild moment, did my spirit refuse to comprehend the meaning of which I saw. At length I forced. It wrestled its way into my soul. It burned itself, and upon my shuddering reason. Oh, for a voice to speak! Oh, horror! Oh, any horror but this! With a shriek I rushed from the market, and buried my face in my hands, weeping bitterly. The heave rapidly increased, and I once again looked up, shuddering, as with fit of ague. There had been a second chance in the cell, and now the change was obviously in the form. As before, it was in vain that I at first endeavored to appreciate or understand what it was taking place. But not for long was I left in doubt. The inquisitorial vengeance had been hurried by my twofold escape, and there was to be no more dallying with the King of Terrors. The room had been square. I saw that the two of its iron angles were now acute, too constantly obtuse. The fearful distance quickly increased with a low rumbling and moaning sound. The instant of the apartment had shifted its form into that of Lazarus. The alteration stopped not there. I neither hoped nor desired to stop. I could have clasped the red walls to my bosom as I guarded the internal pace. Death, I said. Any death but that of the pit. Fool! Might I have not known that into the pit it was an object of burning iron to urge me? Could I resist its glow? Or even if that, could I withstand its pressure, even now? Flatter and flatter grew the lozenge, with a rapidity that left me no time of contemption. Its center, and of course the greatness with, came just over the yawning gulf. I shrank back, but the closing walls pressed me resolutely onward. At length for my scared and withered body, there was no longer an inch of foothold, a firm floored prison. I struggled no more, but the agony of my soul found vent in a sound, long, and final scream of despair. I felt that I tottered up to the brink, averted my eyes. There was a dissonant hum of voices. There was a loud blast of many trumpets. There was a harsh grunting of thousand thunders. The fury of walls rushed back. An outstretched arm caught my own as I fell, fainting into the abyss. It was that of General Lasalle. The French army had entered Toledo. The Inquisition was in the hands of its enemies. And that was The Pit and the Pendulum. Sorry, I've been in this cosplay since start this morning, so I've been a little bit tired. So, hope you all enjoyed the story. It's kind of a scary thing if you have like a seesaw, or what they called it, a pendulum, just swinging with a blade attached to it, slowly coming down, knowing that you're going to die, but not necessarily knowing when. Yet thinking that you can escape in the pit, probably waiting even worse death. Because then again, we know that the rats came from the pit, so it might as well be filled with rats. And if I'm... yeah. Walls closing in. It may be just the last couple of things. Be the guy turning absolutely mad from being in a closed space alone. That's also a very odd thing. They did a test where they had a couple of people alone locked up in a room, which they, they surveyed with a camera, so they would know what was going on. There was absolutely nothing to do in that room. You could sleep, there was bed, there was food, but not much to do, no one to speak to, and you slowly saw these people going from normally sane to, well, not sane at all, and wanting to leave the room as badly as possible because they couldn't handle being alone in a locked room away from everyone. And that's kind of why this story is also fun, because it kind of does that in prison too. I mean, you have, in normal prison, you have, another person or more people to talk to, because you can actually go out and walk around every once in a while and meet the other people who are in prison. But this, being enclosed in a room because you did something, they do not even speak what the man did. May not even been something horrible, just, being part of the other group. Because we... what did they call him? The general? Could have just been someone from the army who was thrown into that weird prison cell with no light. At some point we have information about the room, but none at all about the person and why he's in there. I like it. But it is really an exercise to narrate these stories by Poe and the other big and old writers. They use a lot of words that we just not use anymore in English language. A lot of difficult words to pronounce. So that makes it fun, but also really hard to... I hope you guys really don't mind me struggling on stream with these stories. I love them, but damn. I enjoyed the story. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Lady K. Talking about books, since I've been on vacation for a couple of weeks in France, I was finally able to finish up a couple of books. One of them was Hex by Thomas Oldeheuvelt, which is a Dutch writer. and he mainly writes thriller and horror-ish type of stories. Really good. Some of his books are translated, so for those who are interested in checking out a Dutch writer, his stories Hex and Echo should be translated in English and many other languages as well. I read Hex this summer. Really good. I really enjoyed reading it. It starts off as a, well, I thought it started off as a comedy thriller, and I was absolutely wrong. That was not what it was. That's how it started off, but it really delved into the cult type of horror stories, which made it so interesting. So there is a village in the Netherlands, a small village, where they burnt necessarily or tried to kill a woman for witchery and their children many centuries ago. And she is still alive. After all those centuries, she is still alive. And they know her as the Witch of Bake. Bake is the name of the village where it takes place. And because she is such a dangerous woman, and they stitched her eyes and her mouth closed so people wouldn't commit suicide, because she would tell them to do certain things, because she could, manipulate and enchant them to do things, which is a really scary thing this woman can do. And then you think, well, that sounds scary. Why did you think it was a comedy of all things? Hold up. Hold up. When you start the book, you don't really have a main character that is an adult, but it's a teenage boy and his group of friends that are filming the hacks and trying out all these things together to do other things, to just document the witch. At some point they move things around in the city because she can't see anything. She just has her usual walks through the city of the village. So they moved things around, and eventually she knocks something over and she falls. They laugh, they have it on camera, and you think, okay, moving on, more funny things with the witch. She doesn't seem that harmful. She is, but it's not just the witch that is harmful. It was the people of the village that were the most scary people of all. Because if they didn't anger that woman, she probably would have just died of old age, and they wouldn't have had the witch problem to begin with. And it's so scary to see throughout the book, to see them go from a normal society of people who trying to keep everything secret, to eventually go to this cult and go all the way back to the Middle Ages with we have a torture scene in the book trying to whip the boys back into shapes. Like, you're not allowed to do that. We have rules about this. Yeah, but those were rules that we made up centuries ago. Rules are the rules. We're going to do this, even if it hurts a lot. It was scary how humans at the end were the biggest monsters, and not necessarily the witch, who was just protecting herself, wanted to protect her children. Eventually, she wanted to protect the children from the little village by, you know, taking revenge on their parents and the other adults, but keeping the children safe. And at the end of the book, that just the adults who thought they were doing the best, they threw everything out of the window. It was so well written. And the best thing is, they have adapted the story in a American version. So if you were to buy the book in America, it takes place in a different village, and then it has a different ending. I don't know why they wrote a different ending, because the ending from the book already to me is perfect and I love it. Because at the end of the book you're just... so many things happen and then it goes back to nothing, and you're left with nothing and this weird feeling of despair along with some of the other main characters and the one main character that's left, because it switches throughout main characters throughout the story, and that's fun to see multiple people with their points of views. Of course, the teenager that I talked about with his friend group, and how he is documenting the witch, his father, and how he tries to keep everything from going into chaos. That's a black nail that I... oops. That happens when you don't secure your body paint. I'm dumb as hell. And then you also have... not the baker, she... what's the word for slager in het Engels? Butcher, never mind. I don't have to Google it. I don't have to Google Translate it. Butcher. The butcher was a woman, eventually also becomes one of the main characters that you follow through the story with all her rituals that she does and offerings. It's insane, but I love it, and I think I finished the book within a week, because I was at the edge of my seat during the second half of the book, because so many crazy things happened. Eventually we have a thing with a peacock, which is hilarious. I can't spoil too much. I do that a lot, and I'm sorry for people who still want to read or watch something. But the peacock scene is super funny. It should probably be scary, but when I was reading it with my audiobook, I couldn't help but laugh. You'll know when you would read it. I read the back of the book, and it said that they would be working on a movie in America. So who knows? We might get a movie about Hex. So some people wouldn't have to read it, and you can watch it in a few years. Then again, I don't know when they're gonna do it, because I also am still waiting for the Ranger's Apprentice movie to still be a thing. Same goes for the BioShock movie. That's also a maybe, and been picked up by many people and then dropped by many people. I don't know what to tell you. It's there are many movies I'm waiting on, and I have no idea which ones are actually in the works. But I hope Hex is going to be happening, because it was a fantastic book. Sounds like an entertaining story. It was, because the first half is so funny. And the things they do is just... why would you do that? I get it. So you are safe. Yeah. But then the second half comes rolling in from the book. And then the witch turns from this old lady that is just waltzing around this the town to, oh, this woman is actually very dangerous and probably able to kill literally anyone. Um, that's a problem. Uh, but yeah, it's a good book. It's a very good book. I would highly recommend it. I'm not sure if I can put it on the screen. Maybe I can switch between sources. Screen capture? Do I have a screen capture today? Because then I can show you guys what the cover looks like. Display capture? Is that what it's? Sure. No, 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 absolutely not. You know what? We're just gonna. I'm gonna put this over my face. At the moment, we're just seeing. I'm not even in a narrating scene, am I? Oh shit, I should have been in this screen all along. Oops. Well, hope this works. Oops. Now my face has been really small for a while. Yeah. So this is the book, what it looks like. I am currently at bol.com because that's a little bit easier for me. This is a shop that I use a lot. Alternative cover. It's really pretty, by the way, I think. So, of course, you see here the stitches at the book, which is a reference to the witch itself, because her eyes and mouth are closed up. Here is a version with the artwork. It has multiple covers. Also, Echo. I'm planning on reading this book. It should be in English. This is the cover that we can buy in the Netherlands, the most recent cover. So, yeah. It's really cool. Fun thing is that they even... was it Stephen King that enjoyed this book? I believe it was, yeah. Briljant en toch origineel. Ja, hier. Briljant en volstrekt origineel. Stephen King. So that means as, well, brilliant and very original. So if King likes it, it's a good book. And I'm turning that one back off. But yeah, I highly recommend that book. It's really good. Hee hee. So, yeah. Let's see, how long have I been? An hour and a half. Damn. That's long. Well. I think that this then should be a good reason to close off the stream. I really enjoyed narrating it. Hopefully next time I can just narrate with my normal model again and finish up another creepypasta I was working on. Who knows? Maybe I also will be doing a writing stream very soon because I finally have more motivation to start working on Dream Reapers again because I've got a couple of ideas to work on it. And also weapon ideas for some characters. I got a really cool idea for Dad on his weapon and I kind of want to do something about it. I have been working on a drawing, but I haven't really come around to finish it because my motivation to draw the last few years has just been very low. Happens. Some hobbies you work on a lot, and sometimes you just slowly stop working on some. Not that I'm don't want to anymore because I think I'm bad, because there are other hobbies that I just enjoy more. That being, of course, cosplay with all the other things that come around it, like embroidery and sewing. But narration and reading is also a hobby that I can't let go. So yeah, you have to choose priorities. I don't mind that. I just don't practice drawing enough anymore. Also, the first year in ages that I haven't joined Art Fight. I don't know. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it anymore. Is it dead, or because I also don't know anyone from the horror community that enjoys Art Fight. I have been enjoying Art Fight the last couple of years, not this year, like I said. But last time I barely got any drawings, and I saw that a lot of people instead were only drawing characters from the big YouTubers and animators that joined in. And I think that's kind of sad because then you. Art Fight is basically a way to make fan art of anyone. And of course, it's a great excuse to draw fan art from your favorite YouTuber or animator. But it's a lot more fun to give other people a chance too, from characters they never gotten any art from but don't have any money to ask for commissions. And that's what I do, just pick random characters that I think you look cool, and you look aesthetically pleasing, and you look pretty. So I'm drawing you right now. That's basically how I'm doing Art Fight. And I learned end of last year that's not how other people are doing it. They either draw something back from other people because they attack them, or they just go for the big guys in the hopes that they will make a drawing from their character and that they have a free commission. How? Why would you think that happens? They have so many people who would attack them. The big people will also only cherry pick characters and things that they like. Maybe not even from people who attack them. Why? Because if, let's say, 100 people would attack you within the time of a month, because that's how long Art Fight takes, a month. You have a month the time to create drawings. The most drawings I usually create-ish, usually about 4 or 5 drawings a year. Can't make more, and even then I choose a very simple art style so I can make more. And last year there were a lot of people who didn't even thank me, didn't react to it, didn't attack me back, and I was like, you know what? I just don't enter anymore because people aren't happy with their drawings. That's fine. And if that's the only time that I'm drawing, then I can just use my time better, and instead of drawing other people their characters who are not happy with those drawings, which is sad because that's what the whole thing was about. Free fan art for everyone. Just make art of my own original characters, which I should do, but haven't done in a while. Yeah. I think the last drawing that I made was last year from Luann. Which is, by the way, a drawing that I'm very proud of, because the hair looks super pretty. I should probably cosplay Luann again. It was very fun doing the stream with Dracula. Narrating Dracula. It was super fun, so maybe we'll do that again sometimes in the future. I now have a couple of other original characters too that I could do streams with, and to be honest, I should write stories from them too. But first and foremost, Dream Reapers, because I need to get more chapters out, and when I do upload narrations from them, they will not be in stream format, but just normal story-wise. Yep. I keep forgetting that I blacked out my throat and mouth area. For the people who don't get why I did that, it's not black facing or anything, it's body paint, so art-ish. It is to say so that it looks like the jaw is missing. I don't know, it's a very weird and odd artwork that they made for Hyperdontia. I really liked it. I really loved the song. That's why there are also blood spatters everywhere in my neck. So that. But yeah, I'm talking too much. I was about to close the stream like 10 minutes ago. Why do I always do this? Oh. Oh shit, about an hour ago we got a new subscriber. I had no idea. I think that's because I turned off my sound, didn't I? I didn't hear it. Cass H. Welcome to the castle. A little late, I'm an hour late. Hope you were okay waiting at the gate. Welcome. You can pick and choose any story from the library if you want to listen to more narrations. I have a lot more streams with Edgar Allan Poe and other cool stories that I narrate from books and creepypastas and Nosleep stories. I have no idea if this person is still on the stream, but either way, welcome. Oh! By the way, there is good news. It's kind of. In the video that I did for my face reveal, I was talking about how I wanted to do narrations on conventions, right? I might be doing that somewhere this year. I don't know. I'm still talking with the people of this event, and they're going to check out my YouTube channel in the meantime, because they were looking for a narrator to do scary stories around Halloween, and that would be awesome, you know, because then you guys can just come on and pop in live and see me in person at an event narrating stories from whatever they have in store. We still are talking about what kind of stories, but yeah, they still have to get a green light if they can do the event. And who knows, I think it would be really fun to be narrating for a crowd of people. whether that be creepy and scary stories from the place the event is holding. So essentially, it's held in Town A. So all the stories, scary stories that are gathered around that town, I'm going to tell, or just things from books because they. No, I'm not gonna say much. I'm going to leave this as a mystery. Yeah, we're gonna keep it at that. I might be going to narrate at an actual event. I thought I might be able to next year at AnimeCon because I was able to do a workshop there this year. Because, but yeah, the idea was to first out at AnimeCon because they actually do workshops and whatnot. And you can actually request workshops at certain conventions. So if there are people from the Netherlands watching and you guys want me to narrate there, or have me narrate with other narrators from the Netherlands, fill those forums in because I would love to go there. To, read stories to you guys, creepypastas, books. Just, have a relaxation room for a part of the day where people can sit down, have snacks and foods and drinks while I narrate stories and have some calming music in the background because we really need those rooms in conventions where you can just, sit and relax. We really do. And I think that's very important. So it would be a pleasure. It would absolutely be a pleasure to start narrating live at an event. And I can't tell what it is yet. I don't think they would be happy about that just yet, but I'm excited. I'm excited. I hope that the event will happen because it would be super fun because then I would be able to see more of you guys. Right? Yeah, so that was kind of the news. I am not sure if I was allowed to, tell that, but, since I kept the information to a minimum, I think I'm fine. Anyway, thank you all for joining the stream. It was super fun. And see you guys all in the next one.